I'm back on the CTX200 into the CTX200 frame again. On my last video I said that I noticed that the wheel bearings in the rear wheel had some play in them. So I've taken the rear wheel out, taken the sprocket off, and my new wheel bearings and oil seal have arrived, so I'm going to do that job next. I bought a new sprocket while I was at it. These are a little bit tricky, these sprockets. It has a 5 stud pattern, 64mm inner and 96mm in the stud pattern spacing. 96mm there. Fairly crude arrangement that these studs are held in to the wheel hub. Just some little rubber sockets in here with a small center. They don't seem to be too bad. I'll probably go with those for now. May put those on the list if I do come across them. Ring and circlip. So yeah, a lot of trouble finding a sprocket. They're selling here for about $70. I didn't want to pay that much, so I ended up getting one on eBay out of UK. It should be here in a couple or maybe 3 weeks. This is a 50 tooth. I've gone down to a 46 tooth. I think that's going to be a little bit better, because this is actually the sprocket that's for the 200, and with the 230 I think we'll be able to run it on a you know, slightly less tooth number. So I'm looking forward to that part arriving, then I can put the wheel back together again. At this stage I won't change the rear tyre. It'll be fine for us to do some test rides on. So back down in this area here, I've come across another problem. My brake lever part is here too now, so I can finish off my brakes. I had new shoes that I've fitted. Run into two problems here. One is that when the person pulled the engine apart, they lost the little spring. There's a little spring that goes on there, and there's a little 12mm circlip that goes there that fits after the selector plate here. I wondered why the selector plate seemed a bit loose, and after looking at the parts list a bit more carefully I realised that I'm missing some parts there. So I've gone and ordered that spring and circlip, and hopefully they won't be too far away. Then I can get my selector working properly. It wasn't actually moving through the gears, so I was just playing around with that. So I think that'll fix it. Everything else appears to be in place. I don't think I've got any other missing parts there. So that's that thing I've come across, and of course that's my clutch housing. That's all working out well. Down in here in the alternator housing, I've clearly identified my pulse wire. So this is the pulse wire here. It's the blue and yellow wire here actually. That one there is the blue and yellow wire. I checked the pulse unit was working. I just used a small magnet and my multimeter, and with Faraday's law I just put the little magnet against the pickup there, moved it backwards and forwards, and I was getting a nice pulse, little voltage being generated on my multimeter on this connection here, that one there, to the frame. So I'm happy about that. I think we'll be fine with that. And now I can box that up again. It's only temporary box at this stage. The other problem, more serious, is this carburetor. On the CTX200, the carburetor goes on the outside of the frame down here, and the frame actually bends in further. It sort of starts bending at about here, and it goes inwards. comes in and allows the carburetor to be on the outside of the frame. Well, I can't do that with this frame, so the carburetor's got to go in the middle of the frame. Well, to do that, I can't use the standard manifold insulator. The standard manifold insulator just doesn't give me the right angle. So at the moment I'm fiddling around with different manifolds. I've actually got a 1979 XL250S, one of my parts left over, and it seems to be the best fit at this stage for this carburetor. I was wondering about changing the carburetor, maybe slimming that down a bit, because I'm mainly getting caught just here on the actual linkage part. So that's a little challenge. I don't think it's going to be a major. I should be able to overcome it, but definitely something, if you're going to do this conversion, that you're going to have that same problem. The carburetor definitely is going to be something we need to take care of. I was thinking that the worst comes to worst that I could get my frame modified and get this here cut down in here, and then get a fabricated piece going behind the carburetor. I think that's a bit extreme at this stage, especially when I haven't had the engine running yet. So I think this will allow me to get the engine running, and then we might take it a step further if we need to. What else have I? I've managed to get all of the bolts in place on the engine. I think I told you I had to do a little bit of drilling on this plate here. The hole slightly out of alignment, but I ran a 10mm drill through everything, and it just gave me the clearances I needed to get the bolts through. So bear that in mind. All of the other bolts, no issue. All of the other bolts lined up perfectly. Had no problems with those at all. Down in the bottom here, that bottom bolt, and then up in here, this bolt here as well. No problems with that as well. So that's a little update on the CTX200 engine fitting into a CTX200 frame. These frames are built in Brazil. This one doesn't seem to be too badly put together. You hear different stories about the quality of the build of the frame, but it's not too bad. This bike was built to a price, and of course it's an agricultural frame. It was built for farm use only, so it's not too bad. I put a little bit of cold gal around the swing arm until I decided to do more with that. It just had a bit of surface rust here and there, just to keep it tidy when I'm working on it. I mean, this project's probably going to take longer than I ever thought it would, but that's okay. We've got the time. Hasn't cost a lot of money so far. It's mainly just been little parts. And this was one of the problems I've been having, is that the engine was in parts, and definitely some parts had been lost. And you don't really know that until you start trying to reassemble the engine, and then we get those little bits that you really need to move on to the next stage. And you're not even too sure, even if you actually are missing a part sometimes. Little circlet just goes in that little indent there on the shaft. That's actually the spindle that goes through to the other side of the shifter lever. Okay, well, that's the little update from me on this project. I hope everything is going well for you. It's John from Auckland, New Zealand. I'll catch you in the next one.